Hello, everybody. You can use the chat and let us know where you're from.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Welcome, everyone.
Lots of California. Hi, Maine. Michigan, California again. South Korea, welcome. Oh, there they go. Look at them all. Illinois, Alaska, Washington, Sydney.
Hi, everyone.
It's just great to see everyone from all over the world.
Argentina. Oh, yes, we were talking, Maria, the other day on email. Yep. Hi, Dayton, Ohio, Illinois, more Sydney.
South Carolina, Seattle. Hello.
SDSU alumni.
And West Coasters, I hope your air is getting somewhat better.
Mine is not.
Yeah.
You can smoky NorCal, yes. It's bothering my throat a lot. Good night from Argentina. Thank you, Marta. Tasmania, or Tassie, as my friends say. Buenos Aires. I love Buenos Aires. I know I told you that before, Maria. More San Diego folks. Oh, Philippines. Hello.
Oh, and Wisconsin. Welcome.
Nice.
Victoria, isolation state. Yes, but Andrea, we've been in isolation since March 13. At least you got out for a little while. We've never gotten out yet. Ticket, Texas, Bolivia, Virginia. Yes, Ashley, smoky California, Buenos Aires, several from Buenos Aires.
And I'm in San Diego right now. Someone just asked me where I was at. I'm in San Diego.
In her boat. And I'm from Indiana.
So you might be wondering what we're talking about because most of you are sending it to all panelists. I believe if you send your chat to all panelists and attendees, then everyone can see. So you might want to change your to from all panelists to all panelists and attendees.
Oh, and Kuwait, welcome.
Wow.
Corvallis, Cincinnati.
There we go. Now everyone's seeing it.
Yes.
Yay, Pittsburgh. Go Steelers.
Barstow.
Good afternoon.
LA.
Bye.
Yakima. Welcome back, Yakima. Vancouver.
Lake Tahoe.
Queensland, another friend from Kuwait. Vancouver.
San Francisco.
Yes.
Yuma, hot in Yuma, like here.
Hello, team. Would we like to start?
Sure.
Here we go. Let's do it.
Sure. Yes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Thrill of Accelerating Comprehension in Any Setting, presented by Douglas Fisher, Nancy Frey, and Nicole Law. We're very excited about today's presentation, but first off, we at Corwin wish health and well-being to all of you, your families, and your communities. During this difficult time for educators, we are very happy that you took the time to join us today for some professional development. Just to let you know, if you have any questions for the author team during this presentation, please write them in the chat function and send them to attendees and panelists. We will answer as many questions from within the chat as we can. We have quite a few people on the line today, so we may not get to all questions, but we'll get to as many as we can. So let's go to the next slide. Upcoming webinar, September 21st, John Hattie and Raymond Smith, 10 Mind Frames for Leaders. September 29th, Douglas Fisher, Nancy Frey, and John Hattie, Going Deeper with Distance Learning. And September 30th, Blankenstein, Newsom, George Fields, Nagura, Breakthrough Leadership from Surviving to Thriving. Just some Zoom keeping reminders. This is a webinar format and your camera and microphone are muted. We can talk to you through the chat box, so submit your questions and interact with other participants using chat. This webinar is being recorded, and you'll receive the webinar recording, the PowerPoint deck, and the professional development certificate by the end of the week. So look for that. Now what I'd like to do is turn the presentation over to my colleague, Dina Meyer, Executive Marketing Manager, to introduce today's presenters.
Yeah, hi there. I have the pleasure of introducing your presenters today, and most of the content that we'll be hearing and seeing today is taken from a newly published book. It's actually publishing tomorrow, called Comprehension. And our webinar today is the thrill of accelerating comprehension in any setting. Our presenters, Doug Fisher and Nancy Frey, bring decades of educational experience to their work. They are both professors of educational leadership at San Diego State University, as well as leaders at Health Sciences High and Middle College. Doug has served as a teacher, language development specialist, and administrator in public schools and nonprofit organizations, including 8 years as the Director of Professional Development for the City Heights Collaborative. Nancy has been a special education teacher, reading specialist, and administrator in public schools. She's engaged in professional learning communities as a member and in designing school-wide systems to improve teaching and learning for all students. Nicole Law is a full-time professional learning consultant with Corwin and works with teachers and leaders across the country. As a dynamic and passionate educator, Nicole focuses her work around developing strong teacher teams, leading for equity, implementing high-impact practices for all learners, and increasing engagement and achievement for English learners. Prior to her role with Corwin, Nicole served as a curriculum coordinator in the Metropolitan School District of Wayne Township in Indianapolis, Indiana. And now I'm excited to turn it over to presenters so we can all experience the skill, will, and thrill of reading in any setting.
Thank you so much, Dina. Thank you for such a nice introduction for all of us. And as Dina said, the three of us are just really excited about being able to talk about this work. For all three of us, we're coming from lots of places with teaching younger children as well as older children about reading specifically. And it's with no little bit of humility that we all offer that reading is in and of itself an unnatural act. Unlike speech, unlike language in normally developing humans, it's hardwired right into the brain. Children learn how to speak. But when it comes to reading, the brain has to be taught that written language has only been around for about 6,000 years, which is a heartbeat in terms of human development. And so we do have to be very intentional about the reading that we offer to students and how it is that we teach them. Thank you, Doug. Sorry. Too much clicking that was happening on my part. We really like this visual. It's Hollis Scarborough's reading rope as a way of being able to think through and be able to visualize that careful teaching that we have to do in order to teach children how to read and how to comprehend. And the reading rope overall notes that at the very beginning, as children come into school, they're learning these various skills that you see listed on the left-hand side. They're learning them kind of separately. They reside somewhat for a very young child in silos. And over time, over several years of instruction, what happens is that those initially discrete skills start to be able to be woven together, to be braided together, so that as students are going forward, it becomes increasingly automatic and increasingly strategic. And that's where comprehension lies as well. It's important to note that comprehension instruction doesn't start after grade 3. It starts from the very beginning around language comprehension and so on, at the same time that we're developing that word recognition. but we're always using that to be able to braid those skills together.
So as Nancy was talking about it, the point of reading was comprehension. And we've kind of accepted that the whole point to read something is to comprehend the text. And Thorndike talked about that the comprehension required a cooperation of many forces. And as we used to think about that, those were all of the skills. So you had to have your phonemic awareness and your phonics and your fluency, and you had to have your vocabulary, and you had to have background knowledge. And we thought at the time that the point of comprehension, instruction was comprehension. And we're now saying the point of comprehension is no longer comprehension. It's to do something with the knowledge you gained. And we have to change our whole instructional framework, our instructional model. The point is not just to comprehend a text any longer. It's to do things that matter with the information. And so we're thinking about this, how can we move from a skill focused, whether that's comprehension strategies, foundational skills, how do we move from a skills focused, and those skills are important, to a much more robust model of comprehension? And we've started having these experiences with teachers. So this is from last school year, and the students were studying Veterans Day and what it means and things like that. But the point wasn't to create a graphic organizer. The point was to understand these series of texts that they had devoured, they had learned about, and then do something. Some of them put on a parade, some of them wrote letters, some of them did presentations. See, the point wasn't just to understand the text about Veterans Day. The point was, as Dennis said, to do something, create a product that matters. So this one student wrote this letter, a letter of thanks, but other people did other things in this class. And it started getting us thinking and talking. What if we expanded our thinking of comprehension and it wasn't just skills? We had to think through a model of reading comprehension instruction. And for those of you who are in the reading nerd world, there are all kinds of models of reading comprehension itself. We have models of how comprehension occurs, but not a model of reading comprehension instruction. And so we were thinking, maybe we could organize this around the skill, will, and thrill of reading comprehension. How could we take what is known from the skills that are required to comprehend to move it into the will and the thrill? And we argue that comprehenders need the skill to decode and understand, the will to pursue text as it gets harder, and the thrill that comes from taking consequential actions because of a text. That's how we're thinking about that. How do we move this model so we don't just focus on the skills, all the skills that are so important to have students do something of consequence? So a brief overview of what we're going to talk about. So there is an important level called the skill. And the skill of comprehension requires that you mobilize all of those forces, the phonemic awareness, the comprehension strategies, your fluency. But I don't think that's enough anymore. I think that leaves students short. There should also be the will. And yes, we're seeing lots more about reading motivation, reading engagement, choosing to read things. Then rarely we see some work around the thrill of comprehension. As you probably have guessed, most of the studies, most of the articles, most of the writing is around the skill. There are some around the will, very little about making it a thrill. Taking action and producing things that matter, not that common yet. And to review, the presentation will be available. You'll get an email with a link to the PowerPoint and a recording of this by the end of the week.
So we'll start out by talking about skill, because skill in reading comprehension is absolutely essential. And there's been more attention that has been on this of late, especially in thinking through what those important foundational skills are. But what does it mean to be a skilled reader. It's not only teaching the skills, the foundational skills that are needed, but also in being able to teach that reader to become more skilled at what it is that she's able to do. Well, Doug, I'm just not doing a very good job of clicking.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you. So when we talk about a skilled reader, that's a person, that's someone who has had those initially important strategies and so on that had to be taught, now being able to kind of operate at the subconscious level, that they're able to utilize those skills, if you will, and to become much more automatic about it. In the meantime, readers also need to be strategic. There are some effortful and deliberate skills that they're utilizing as well. And that especially happens whenever the text becomes more difficult. For all of us, as we're reading, there are times where we are sailing along, understanding, decoding, doing all of those things without any kind of conscious effort in what we're doing. But then we hit a little bump in the road. We lose some meaning, or we're confused about something. And that's when our strategic reading begins to kick in. That's when it is that we start to do those effortful and deliberate kinds of things. So let's talk just a little bit about reading development and about how it is, especially at that skills level. We really admire the work of Scott Paris, who has talked about constrained and unconstrained skills in reading. Constrained, as you know, means that it has edges to it. It has a boundary to it. Unconstrained means that it is something that doesn't have boundaries to it. And when it comes to reading, both of those are the case. When we're talking about constrained skills, they are many of those foundational reading skills that young children are acquiring in the first couple of years of learning, especially the phonological awareness, understanding the sounds of the language and how it is that they work together. They bolt those sounds of the language onto the letters of the language. We call that phonics, and they develop fluency. But each of those have boundaries to them. In other words, there are only so many sounds that are in any language. There are only so many letters or representations of those sounds in any language. And in terms of fluency, while the tail is a bit longer, at some point you can't read more accurately and you can't read with more speed. There's a limit, a ceiling to that. And those constrained skills are absolutely foundational. In fact, they're often referred to as the foundational skills in reading. We're going to take a look at a teacher instructing on some foundational skills in a distance learning environment.
And importantly, Nancy, they're called foundational because they're not optional. We didn't call them the optional skills. We called them the foundational skills for a reason. So let's watch Hilda. I'm going to fast forward in this. The point here is we're going to make some connections to asynchronous and distance learning. So we're not saying it's only about physical school.
Hi, boys and girls. We are going to continue learning all about the long A sound. So this week we've been learning different ways there are to make the long A sound. Before we start our new learning, let's go ahead and go back and review what we already know about ways there are to make the long A sound. So we've learned that if we add an E to the end of a word and there's an A and a consonant, that helps make the long A sound.
And so you'll see that she's doing a review of 2 ways to make long A. And then she applies it. Victor, sparkling water. And then she applies it to a book.
Oh, I'm looking at this word. This word has the AY. We learned that that chunk makes the A also. Boys and girls, what's this word? Play. That's right, it says play. Oh my gosh, I even see it again down here in the word away. Away.
So even though this is asynchronous, she's still talking to her students as if they are there, pausing for their brains to close around what the word is, etc.
This way. That way also makes the long E sound. So, I'm sorry, the long A sound. The AI way. So I'm going to go ahead and show you some ways, show you some words that have the AI that make the long A sound. Look at this word that I'm going to write.
So she's going to generate a whole bunch of words that have long A, the AI way, and then again, apply it to a book. Again, this is asynchronous learning, and then she will give students all kinds of practice with writing and with reading. And if they have a hard time with that practice, they or their families could watch this video, review again, go back to the practice.
Learning more words, and we could understand more of our stories. So, oh, and this book that we're going to read today, the title is Wait for Me. Wait for Me. This book has a title, and in the first word, I see that A chunk that we learned. Wait for me. Let's take a look inside of the book, and let's see if we see another word that has an AI. Oh, boys and girls, I'm going to go back right here. This character's name, we've seen her in different books. Her name is Daisy. Daisy. That says A right there. Daisy. Oh, and there's that word, wait for me. Boys and girls, I do want to call attention to this word right here. We know that as one of our sight words. That word says said. That has the AI also, but it doesn't say A there. In this word, it says the S sound.
So I think you get the point. Oops, she's going to talk again. I think you get the point that this is a skill, a foundational skill that has to be developed for students, but it's not enough. Yes, they need this. And they're going to have, yes, we have, Bella, we have more across them. Because we're going to think about how to take students from skill to will to thrill.
And that leads us, and Bella, thanks for anticipating this. That leads this into the other part of what Paris talked about, the unconstrained skills. So we've got those foundational skills, those constrained skills that are essential. But unconstrained skills in reading include vocabulary and comprehension. And by unconstrained, what we mean is this: there is no limit to this. Your vocabulary today is better than it was 5 years ago. Your comprehension, based on the knowledge that you acquire 5 years from now, will be stronger than it is right now. And Regina, I saw your question in the chat as well about anticipating how it is that you make sure that students who are not yet at expected levels of reading, how it is that we're still creating those opportunities for them. And that's where those unconstrained skills come into play. It can be, it is a misapplication of understanding reading by saying that if a child is not making expected progress in constrained skills, that somehow we hold them back from instruction around unconstrained skills. And where comprehension and vocabulary especially lie are within those complex texts, those challenging texts. We're going to take a look at another teacher doing some vocabulary instruction in anticipation of a piece of text.
Again, in an asynchronous environment. No, sorry, in a distance learning environment, synchronous with kids this time.
All right, so again, we're looking at what is a synonym, right? And we discovered right now that a synonym is two words that mean the same thing. So if I say mad or angry, I can say both of them when I'm feeling this way, like this guy. Who can make that face? Show me that face. Oh, Zizi's doing, oh, Jacob's doing it. Like, oh, I'm so mad, right? I can say, I'm so mad, or I'm so angry, and they both mean the same thing, right? Mad and angry are synonyms. They both mean the same thing. Okay, here's your challenge. We're gonna practice. So, if I say the word laugh, like, a synonym for laugh, you're gonna write it on your paper, okay? Is it chew? Do laugh and chew mean the same thing?
No.
I'm not thinking. Your pencil's gonna do your talking, okay? Do laugh and giggle mean the same thing? Or do laugh and cry mean the same thing? Which one of the three words is a synonym for laugh? Chew, giggle, or cry? Which one means laugh? Write it down. Write down the word. Write down the word on your paper. And when you're ready to share, I want you to show me by raising your hand like this. And you're ready to share. Okay. I think we're ready.
I think, so I think you get the point of the vocabulary lesson, and they go through several synonyms. Then they construct sentences where they go through them. As we get there, sorry, I was writing to Kevin. I think in the past, with a little bit of work on motivation as an exception, I think most of us, myself included, have focused on the skills: comprehension, strategy, instruction, fluency building, phonics, phonemic awareness, vocabulary, and we thought that would be motivating. And yes, there are some things that we need to do to change the will of comprehension. I like to say this: school is a place where young people go to watch old people work. And we think about how we can get students to want to do the work of school. I did 9th grade already. I don't want to do it again, but I want to be there to support those 9th graders. So I'll tell you a quick story. So 3 years ago, my mom was at the gym with her personal trainer doing pull-ups. My mom was 72 years old at the time. She probably doesn't want me to say that, but she was 72 at the time doing pull-ups. You should all be super impressed that my mother can do pull-ups at 72. But she fell and she hit her head on a concrete floor. And I went to visit her in the hospital in the trauma. She had a traumatic brain injury. She didn't know who she was. She didn't know who I was. She didn't know who my sister was, nothing. She was induced into a coma in intensive care. She lived there. We were super aggressive about her therapy. Fast forward, my mom's fine now. My mom is still at work. My mom is a lunch lady at Mount Miguel High School, and she is there today serving lunch to the community because she will not quit that job. So yes, it was really scary to watch her not know anything. And thanks for that comment, Cynthia and Maria. So I'll fast forward, she's better. She lives in her own house. She drives her own car. She goes to work still at 75. She loves her job. Here's the part of the story I want you to focus on. About 3 months in, well, hello, Dennis, yes, but I wanted to sue the personal trainer. She told me she'd never speak to me if I sued her trainer. Anyway, so here's the part I want to focus on. About 3 months into her rehab stay at a rehab facility, I brought her iPad over one day. We were going to play on the iPad and look at Facebook because then she would see people, but Facebook really stressed her out because she knew these people, but she didn't know their names, and it caused her stress. So we were playing around and she found this game here, Candy Crush, and she started at level 1 and she advanced and it made noise and flashed and she was super happy with it. And she started working on level 2 and it took her several days, and all of a sudden it won and she went to level 3. Today she's on level 39. And my mom loves Candy Crush, and in any minute she gets internet access, even when we're traveling, she, oh, thank you, Laura. It's super nice. My mom works at your school, lunch lady. So anyway, so there she is playing Candy Crush, and I had this aha moment. The gamers got it right. You let people experience success, and then you make it harder. That's really cool. See, I think in our work in comprehension, we mostly just make it hard and kids experience failure. I do want them to read complex text, but the key to motivation is experiencing some success. So why leveling it up? Exactly. So why don't we do this in reading? Why don't we build a bunch of skills, allow young people to have some success, and then increase it to make it harder, just like the games do.
We like Guy Claxton's metaphor of using a river to be able to talk about learning, and especially to be able to talk about will in particular. You know, at that surface level, you can see there at the top, think of a river, and the water that is at the top goes very quickly. It's easy to be able to see. Anybody who's looking at it can see the surface of the water. And that's much like what it is that we know about our students. We often know quite a bit about their knowledge levels, how much they know about things. But underneath the surface of the river lie those skills and literacies. In other words, those ways in which they begin to access that knowledge. And down at the bottom, even more difficult, not only for us to see, but even for our own students to be able to see in themselves, that's where those dispositions are. Those dispositions, those attitudes towards learning are a key part of motivation, of will. And very often what we hear about is kind of a backwards version of motivation, that somehow that motivation is something that is up to the student to be able to find, rather than something that we can utilize in order to be able to leverage it. But as I said, it's difficult to see, so we have to look beyond just simply what it is that they know and look further down into what those attitudes and those dispositions are.
Thank you, Nancy. When we think about why are we teaching motivation, what we call skill, it's necessary for building reading comprehension. And really we think about the will as it's not static, and teachers have a direct impact in really targeting and increasing the will of our students, the motivation of our students. When we consider the research from Wong and Chen, the effectiveness of a teacher's reading comprehension instruction is directly dependent on a student's attitude towards reading. So when students have a low attitude on reading, or a disposition that they don't like reading, that reading is too difficult for them, that really disrupts a teacher's reading comprehension instruction. So as we think about why is motivation is important, it's important because it impacts reading comprehension instruction. When we think about low reading concept of our students, it begins as early as the first grade. It was thought that this didn't occur until after third grade into the intermediate grades, but research has really found that even as early as the end of first grade, that reading self-concept, a low self-concept, can impact a student as early as their primary years. When we think about disrupting this, we can disrupt it by creating a community of readers that's invitational and building the interest in books. You know, we think about motivation being fueled by students' interest and choice, but also those appropriate levels of challenge. We need that level of challenge and those emotional connections. How am I connected to this book? What is it that I'm reading about the author's dispositions, the author's their perspectives, how they interact and engage? And do I see myself? Am I seeing myself in this book? Do I have an opportunity to hear my voice and learn the voices of others? So that emotional engagement, that's key to building students' motivation. As we think about the Goldilocks challenge, absolutely love this. 0.74, and we know that this is in the zone of desired effect size with John Hattie's visible learning research, and really thinking about the Goldilocks challenge. Too hard, too difficult, we're gonna lose students. Too easy, that creates boredom. And so finding that opportunity of that just right fit, so we can identify that level of engagement where students are connected and they find their flow in reading, they find their flow in comprehension. Absolutely, it's that sweet spot, right? But it definitely takes work, and it takes being connected to our students, knowing our students' interests, knowing their levels, and being able to connect that. One thing that, and Doug and Nancy know that I love this quote from Tatum. He says, and it rocked my world as a principal in thinking about some of the structures that I built in terms of balanced literacy. But thank goodness it was a balance in our literacy, literacy instruction. But he says, leveled books lead to leveled lives. Blew my mind. Leveled books lead to leveled lives. Thinking about why is it leading to leveled lives? Because students are not experiencing that challenge, that rigor, and finding, as you said, that sweet spot.
Alfred Tatum said it.
Alfred Tatum said it.
He's talking about third graders and above. Leveled texts lead to leveled lives.
So thinking about creating opportunities where we teach what students don't know. And we know the research from the Hidden Lives of Learners, Grant et al., that says 40 to 50% of what we teach, students already know it. So, and this is not the same for every student. We might have students that have absolutely no concept of what we're teaching, where others, they know the topic well. And they probably know it well enough to really be a peer influencer. However, we might not even know what students know if we haven't pre-assessed. But thinking about 40 to 50% of what we teach, students already have knowledge of. How do we mitigate this? Thinking about those instructional minutes devoted to what students don't know, and teach those aspects deeply and consistently. When we think about John Hattie's research, I often look at that zone of desired effect size to think about what has impact. So those influences that are over 0.40 and higher, that has that 1 year growth of learning for 1 year's time in school. But then I also look at what reverses learning. Look at boredom. Negative 0.47. We know that students need to have a connection to what they're learning to disrupt that boredom. And one way to do this and to motivate our students is through having learning goals. So we see learning goals versus no learning goals, 0.51. So significant in increasing motivation.
Sorry, I'm writing.
I knew you were writing. So this is a teacher's classroom. That's okay. This is a teacher's classroom where the students are thinking about their own goals, and they have definitely a success criteria. They're thinking about their own goals towards learning, not behavioral, not emotional, but the cognitive goals. And they're able to set those goals for themselves and then track their progress. Think about how motivating that is to know exactly where you're going and your goals to get there, and then we can self-regulate. So as you can see, the students list them. We don't see the names. They, of course, know who they are because they have their numbers, and some of them did put their names on the Post-its. And let's see what one says a little bit closer. My goal as a student is to get better at subjects that I find difficult. Not that Goldilocks challenge, right? Not too hard, not too easy. It's still difficult, and I know that I can do this because I believe in myself. I have that efficacy, and I can self-regulate. When we think about goal setting, and you can advance, Doug, choice matters. Choice matters for students to be able to have equity and interest in what they read. Choice matters, and we can create those spaces where students identify high interest, but maybe easier to read, less difficult, or challenging, but very high interest, and it connects them to a theme or a topic that they're interested in. So when we think about choice, choice matters, and it should be a proactive action that we think about. How are we providing choice in our classrooms and in our schools? Yes, and creating those opportunities, thank you, for students to see themselves, but also see the world around them. I like to say it like this: those sliding window opportunities, those sliding patio doors. So I'm able to see the lives of others, but I should see myself as well. And when we think about choice, we create environments, a community of learners where students are engaged and they want to do something. They're connected to what they read, and now they're driven to do something and have that thrill of comprehension.
Yes, look at those magnificent readers. So we've gone on a journey and we've said skills are important. Let's not discount them, but let's not avoid some will as we develop skill. In fact, we're arguing these three are always operating simultaneously. It is not a linear process from the skill to the will to the thrill. It's always going on. So we're teaching things, we're choosing texts that allow us to have instructional goals, and we're having students have choices to practice the things they've been taught. And in this will area, choice becomes super important, but so does understanding yourself as a reader and the things that you still want to grow as a reader. And that pretty solid in the research. I mean, there's tons of studies on the skills of comprehension and some on the will. But the thrill of reading comprehension is really not very well understood. We think about the thrill comes when readers get to act upon the world. It's super exciting to be able to take what you have read and understood, and you can use it for something else. Thrill and comprehension requires that students have to take a critical stance and be a producer and set goals for themselves. And how do we get that thrill to happen? How do you get to say, I can agree and disagree with this author? How can I produce something that I care about that matters? How do you get kids to love reading? Nancy?
Well, and that's always the question, isn't it? How is it that you make kids love reading? And so let's use a different analogy, a different process that happened. How do you make teachers use technology in the classroom? Do you remember those days? We're all using technology in the classroom now, right? But 20 years ago, there was a huge effort to be able to infuse technology in the classroom. And there were lots of approaches that went along with that. Some of those approaches included, let's make them log in for 20 minutes a day. Let's require that. That'll get teachers to use technology in the classroom. 20 minutes, they have to do that. Or maybe what we should do is we should just flood their classrooms with lots of technology. Yeah, they don't know how to use it, but at least if it's around them, they'll figure out how to use it, right? How about if we just give them some free technology time? You know, just time where you can utilize any of that technology. It's undirected, right? And the truth is we know that none of those things worked. Teachers started to infuse technology when they saw a purpose for utilizing that technology. And the same thing is true whenever it comes to making sure that students want to read. It's all about purpose. When reading is linked to their purposes, not our purposes, but when it's linked to their purposes, they acquire that love of reading as well.
So this journey started, this thrill of reading comprehension started several years ago when we said the end of a close reading needs to be different. This is where it started. This idea came many years ago when we said, we have three kinds of questions in a close reading. What does the text say? How does the text work? And what does the text mean? And we added this fourth question. What does the text inspire you to do? And when we started that journey of what does the text inspire you to do, we started to see more thrill. And by the way, thrill then drives skill and will. Because when you want to do something, you want to do research, you want to present, you end up going back in and saying, wow, now I want to do this, which means I didn't understand this other text, so I want to learn more about this text, and I'm motivated to read more. There's this circle that starts to happen when I experience the thrill of doing something with the text I've read. I want to be a better reader. I am motivated. I'm more engaged in that whole idea of the skills that my teacher is teaching me. One last distance learning video for you. This is a breakout room. The teacher's in the breakout room, and they've been reading these books on people. This group is reading Malala, and so you'll see what she's offering them.
This is her in real life, not illustration, right? This is her. I wanted to show that with you guys. And to kind of wrap up, I want you to choose one of these two prompts. So prompt one, what are you passionate about and how can you create change? Or what does Malala inspire you to do? And I would like you to write your answer in the chat box. So I want you to think for a second though, what are you passionate about? It doesn't have to be related or the same that Malala was passionate about. What are you passionate about? And what could you do to create change? And then, or if you want to answer, what does Malala inspire you to do? So you can choose either of those. And then I would like for you to respond in the chat box.
So this is a lit group. They chose a lit circle. They chose the text, and the teacher is giving them, here are two choices. In distance learning, to be inspired with this text, because you have a choice. So I saw the comment about younger kids. So let's go down to kindergarten. Kindergarten, a teacher reading The Day the Crayons Quit, probably the best picture book published in the history of the planet. In my humble opinion, I love this book. Thank you, Samantha, right there with you. So this book confuses me because I don't know what grade it can be taught at. So this is a kindergarten example. These students have really inspected this book. They know so much about green crayon and red crayon and tan crayon. They know all about this. And they've inspected the letters and they've reread them and gone back to them and explored. And at one point, their teacher says to them, what does this text inspire you to do? And it was so interesting to watch the 5-year-olds. Some of them, they happen to all be boys, scattered to desktop computers. They typed the word sun into the search engine, hit images, and they started printing pictures of the sun, images of the sun, and they made an orange pile and a yellow pile because they wanted to know the question, the answer to the question, which is the real color of the sun? Is it orange or is it yellow? If you know this book, that is a debate that happens in this book. Another group of students went to write, and they were writing about their crayons and they're writing all these other things. A group of students got some iPads out, they sat down, and their question was, has this author written other books? At the time, Drew had not written any other books. And there they are trying to find out. Well, they come across his author page. Well, they can't read it. They invite me over. And there they are trying to read this page to figure out if he has another book. And it goes on and on about his life growing up in a traveling circus with his family. And there was a fun house mirror that he writes about. He talked about it. And then the 5-year-olds say, what's a funhouse mirror? So we looked up that and we found an app that we could download onto the iPad to make the iPad a funhouse mirror. And then they wanted to know how the funhouse mirror worked. So then we found a Wikipedia page about funhouse mirrors and bending lights and how light gets refracted. Oh my gosh, these 5-year-olds went from, has the author written another book? What is a funhouse mirror? How does it work? How does it bend the light? So cool. One girl ran off in the corner saying, I'm going to write my own book. And she ended up writing a book of what her shoes would say to her. And we got permission from her mom to send it to this author through his publisher. And you know what? To his credit, that author responded to that kid about her book, 5-page book, about what her shoes would say to her. And in the letter he says, and I promise not to steal your idea, isn't that so cool? And he sent her his second book, the book that came out. And here's another kid. Nancy was able to grab a picture of this student. This student writes, I'm a 5-year-old, she says, how about, she's trying to solve the problem of the color of the sun. And she writes, how about you and orange both be the color of the sun? Dear green, I made the yellow and orange's problem go away because I'm a good problem solver. Nobody else wrote this. This is what she was inspired to do. She defines herself as a problem solver. And I'm going to solve the problem in this book of the fight between the orange and the yellow. Imagine, it's still learning to read. It's still building skill and will. Building the skill, will, and thrill requires that we ask ourselves questions about equity and inclusion. What are we doing? How can we think about, how will the instruction build their literacy? That's our skill. How will my instruction and text selection build their knowledge and mental powers? How will my instruction and text selection help students learn something about themselves and other people? And how will my instruction and text selection engage students thinking about power, equity, and the disruption of oppression? Imagine if we stopped limiting literacy instruction to the skills. The skills are important, but they are in service of something much bigger, a change in the world. So in 2018, we got to go to David Pearson's retirement party, a celebration. And there, Richard Anderson, who's one of the grandfathers of the reading world, some of you might know his work. He's the co-author of Becoming a Nation of Readers. He was the creator and director of the Center for Reading. I mean, just like a very powerful person in the world of reading. And he said at this reception that we need to consider new metaphors for reading comprehension. It's no longer passive reception, it's active production. And so he said, I have a few ideas of these new metaphors. What if we had students become, some of them, become explainers? That one of the things that you might do as a result of deeply understanding the text and the thrill might be to explain things to other people. What if some of our students want to be storytellers? What if that's who they want to be and that's why they read? And what if some of our students want to be arguers, to take what they've been reading and have debates and argue ideas and argue positions? He gave us those 3 that day. There are probably more, he said. But what if we changed the metaphor for the whole point of reading? What is the point of reading anymore? Comprehension is no longer the point of comprehension. At that same party, David Pearson got up and talked, and he said, phonemic awareness may be important if it's on the pathway to phonics, which may be important if it's on the pathway to fluency. And fluency may be important if it's on the pathway to vocabulary. And the vocabulary may be important if it's on the pathway to comprehension. And that's where we used to end. And comprehension may be important if it's on the pathway to critical reasoning and problem solving, which may be important if it's on the pathway to action in the world and changing something that matters. The point of comprehension is not comprehension. The point of comprehension is to do something that matters. The whole point of reading is not to consume information, but to do something with it, something that you care about, something that's appropriate for 5-year-olds, 15-year-olds, and 35-year-olds. What if we created opportunities for young people to develop the skills which are so important, to develop the will, the motivation, the choice, but then extended it to the thrill, doing something that matters with your reading? What if? So I'm seeing all the questions in there. Thank you so much for your time. Awesome. If you have any questions, put it up. I hope this gave you hope for what's possible in the world of reading, that we're on a next generation of comprehension. What does this text inspire you to do? And let's move to thrill and not hold thrill off until many years of skill. It's a cycle we go through. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Doug and Nancy and Nicole. What a great presentation. So I wanted to let everybody know that if you are interested in the books that kind of form the basis for this presentation, Comprehension, like I said, is publishing tomorrow. You can pre-order it and it'll be shipped out to you as soon as we have it. And if you go on Corwin.com and use the code CLSHIP, as in Corwin Literacy Ship, you will get free shipping with your purchases. And also the Distance Learning Playbook K-12 is out, which some of the content was also from that book. Then we have the parent book for distance learning coming out, and the Distance Learning Playbook for school leaders will be out next month. And if we go to the next slide, I just wanted to give a little promotion for a couple more events. We have the Comprehension Book Launch Party. So everyone that orders the book will have it in their hands by October 1st, and we'll have a great fun party via Zoom. Bring your beverage to toast. We'll have the authors that you're hearing from today also do select readings. We'll be giving prizes for best costume and best Zoom background, so up your game for that. And then another fun event that we have on the next slide.
I'm gonna go back when they're asking about the book. So they wanted, how do you, you put CL Ship. So that's Corwin Literacy Ship in the promo code, and you get 20% off.
And free shipping.
Oh, and free shipping, which saves a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, that's really nice. So we have the books before Amazon does, so you'll definitely want to order new books from Corwin.com.
What about shipping to Argentina and international and Kuwait and all those places?
Yeah, so if you go on Corwin.com and put your country code in, it'll ask you that when you go there first, then it will direct you to a site where you should be able to order your books. That code might not work in your country, but some of them that order through other sources will provide other codes when you set up accounts with them. So go ahead and go to where it directs you to.
Now I have to put this in there. bit.ly/comprehension
launch to RSVP for the launch party.
The Comprehension book is a K-12 book, Sarah Ann. There are examples from kindergarten through 12th grade in that book.
And then lastly, we have Camp Corwin starting up again. And on October 13th and 15th, We will have Doug and Nancy will be presenting Comprehension Book Club for everyone to join. And again, a free event. You can sign up at corwin.com/Corwin Book Club and put in your information there, and you'll be invited to join the book club. And I think that was the end of our presentation, but feel free to send any more questions. I'll hang out for a couple more minutes to help respond to them.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Karen. So if you want to, the book club is totally free. Go to corwin.com/Corwin Book Club, sign up for that. The distance learning webinar, the one we're going deeper. Do you remember how to sign up for that?
Corwin.com/webinars.
Corwin.com/webinars, and you can sign up for the going deeper on distance learning. Oh, the book club launch is not working.
Bit.ly.
Did I do it wrong?
bit.ly/comprehension launch.
Get that. Could you try again?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Siri.
Yep. It worked for me.
Maybe I typed it wrong. Where'd it go? Comprehension launch. Yes?
You have excellent decoding skills.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. What kind comment. Thank you. Thank you all. Enjoy. Stay safe.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
You've got this. You can do it. Thanks for taking your students, your young people on the journey from skill, will to thrill.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Nicole.
Bye, Nancy.
Bye, Doug.
Bye, Doug. Thank you.